What is the Schomburg Center? To me, it is home. The place where we come to see who we really are, not just somebody else's reflection of who we are.
The Schomburg Center is a place of culture, it's a place of history, it's a place of knowledge.
The Schomburg Center, to me, is a repository of all of the things that has documented our sense of worth as a people.
For me, that means that it is a place of immense power.
The Schomburg Center is a public research library and a cultural institution
for the study of the Pan-African world.
It is perhaps the best in the world.
My Schomburg Center is Arturo Alfonso Schomburg.
Arturo Schomburg said, Black history and culture and intellect exists at a time when most people didn't believe that. He collected those evidences, and that became the beginning of the collection.
And it has expanded and has grown to where it is now a world-class institution.
It holds over 10 million items.
There's no parallel anywhere that brings to light what we as people of color have done, what we continue to do.
Black culture is all of culture. The universals that animate everyone's life happen here for all people.
The Schomburg for me is one of the center pillars of Harlem. When I started the journey of finding out about Red Rooster and Harlem, the very first place I went to was the Schomburg.
Researchers from around the world come and use what we have here.
I could not have written just about any of the books that I've written without the Schomburg Center's archives, resources.
The Schomburg Center is much more than a library. We encourage lifelong learning and exploration.
The Junior Scholars Program is a Saturday program with students from 5th grade to senior year in high school to help them learn about Black history and culture.
Learning about my history is important because it teaches me who I am.
The Schomburg Junior Scholars Program is going to do nothing but uplift them.
So many talented and brilliant people have walked the corridors of this amazing institution over the years. From Octavia Butler to Toni Morrison and James Baldwin, Ella Fitzgerald, Alvin Ailey, and Harry Belafonte, who graced the stage in this room of the American Negro Theater.
This place evokes great memories. It was a gift to us in our community to really try to find that space to reflect expressions of Black experience. I just knew that the environment, what I saw these young African Americans doing, was a place I needed to be.
What is my Schomburg Center? I'm standing here at the Cosmogram, which underneath holds the ashes of the poet Langston Hughes. On the evening when this Cosmogram was dedicated, people began to empty out of the auditorium. A jazz trio struck up, and to my amazement, Amira Baraka went over and asked Maya Angelou for a dance. And they started to dance on top of the Cosmogram, on top of the ashes of Langston Hughes, and I felt what a fitting way to kiss the memory of Langston.
The Schomburg Center is a research institute and a library, but it's so much more than that.
There's something going on every day.
So many amazing people come here to talk about their creative craft, to share what inspires them. The Schomburg Center's collections help to tell stories even beyond our walls.
The Schomburg Center is here in this exhibition at MoMA, One-Way Ticket, Jacob Lawrence's Migration Series. We depend on the resources of the Schomburg to enable us to tell this story. Thinking about the implications of the past on the present is absolutely crucial for understanding the next steps, understanding what we have to do to go forward.
We today have the responsibility of making sure that new artists and activists, new scholars and poets know that this place continues to be a resource and a source of inspiration for the work that we must continue to do.
The Schomburg Center is knowledge.
The Schomburg Center, to me, is education.
The Schomburg Center is home, it is family, it is foundational.
The Schomburg Center is inspiration.
The Schomburg is with me in everything that I do.
Community, inside and out.
The Schomburg Center is us.
The Schomburg Center is you, and we invite each and every one of you to find your Schomburg Center.
Good morning. Welcome to the 12th Annual Black Comic Book Festival. Yeah. My name is Katie Tubman. I'm the executive producer and curator of your Black Comic Book Festival, and I'm so happy to welcome you home, back to Harlem. It's such a pleasure to be able to put on this event for another year and to see so many faces who are joining us here, and I know there are folks joining us online for what will be a spectacular weekend. I want to just remind folks to stay engaged with us online at schomburgcenter.org, at NYPL, and also to view the exhibitors that we have here on site throughout the weekend. It's going to be a phenomenal time. I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who's joining us. Thank you to the Schomburg Center and New York Public Library for supporting this program, especially at a time where local libraries are so incredibly needed and necessary in our communities. I also want to give a special thank you to the founders of our Black Comic Book Festival, Deirdre Hollman, Jonathan Gales, John Jennings, and Jerry Kraft. And to start off our program today, we're going to do, it's very youth focused. Also, if you're also youth, you don't have to be youth to be here, by the way. But if you are a young person, we encourage you to stay for the program that's happening afterwards, which is going to be a drawing workshop. But today we're going to kick it off with graphic histories in Black comics in the classroom, and we're going to have Deirdre Hollman and John Jennings kick us off for today. So thank you, and welcome to the stage, Deirdre and John.
Hello, everybody. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Mwah, mwah. It's beautiful to be back at the Schomburg Center. For the 12th annual, can you believe it?
I cannot.
Comic Book Festival. I too want to thank the Schomburg Center and the New York Public Library for sustaining this very important event. And I want to give a big shout out and hope you can join me in a big round of applause for Katie Tubman, who's been the executive producer of the festival for the past 5 years. She has made this program a well-oiled machine, and I'm just so grateful for her energy and for her passion for keeping this program alive. So Katie Atu, her husband Norman, and the whole Schomburg team that works with her, thank you so much. And so as an educator, a human being, a parent, I just want to take a quick moment to say the world is in chaos right now. And I know it's probably on many of your hearts in many different ways. All of the many human injustices and atrocities and casualties that are happening at points throughout the world. And as I myself was trying to reconcile, how do we get up and celebrate comics at a time like this? It came to me from that divine place when we pray like that we have to make space for joy. We have to make space for activism and ideas. We have to make space where artists get up and create so that we can remain inspired and resilient and diligent in the work that we do. And so writers can get up in the morning and put words to page to express our conditions and our hopes and our fears so that parents can get up and send their kids to school and educators can meet them at the front door with a smile. And so, again, this space is a healing space, a space for joy, and I'm so grateful that we're able to do this. And with that, I'm going to kick off the program. We're here to celebrate graphic Black histories and comics for the classroom. There are 4 amazing projects that we're going to present to you today that have been created for young people. And I'm going to introduce our panelists, bring them up to stage one by one. Did you want to make opening remarks, John?
No, I'm totally. How do I follow that?
The first being my OG comrade, John Jennings, who's a professor and best-selling graphic novelist, co-founder of this comic book festival, co-author and illustrator of the graphic novel adaptation of Octavia Butler's novels Kindred and Parable of the Sower, and founder of Abrams ComicArts-Megascope Books, John Jennings. I want to bring to the stage multidisciplinary artist and historian, founder of Kamau Studios and the Black Gotham Experience, Kamau Ware. Animator and senior creative designer of Blue Telescope, Reese Patillo. Creative lead, digital marketer, artist, and community organizer, Ellis. And myself, because our other two panelists are on their way. And so just myself, my name is Deirdre Hollman. Oh, you're here. Right at the edge of the podium. So let me introduce Afrofuturist illustrator, animator, and founder of Diesel Funk Studios, and author of Maddie's Rocket and Infinitum Tin Fielder. And professor and chair of the Department of History at Macalester College, author of several works, including the Encyclopedia of Black Comics and the Wakanda Syllabus, Dr. Walter Greason. So, our first presentation will be from John Jennings as he introduced Queenie.
Good morning. All right, thank you. It's such a great honor to be here with you all. Thank you for getting up early and coming here to celebrate graphic histories. So I want to introduce a book that's near and dear to my heart. As the great Deirdre Hollman just said, I'm a professor of media and cultural studies. I study comics, Afrofuturism, Black horror, and an array of different representations of Blackness in comics. So also the co-founder, curator of Abrams ComicArts-Megascope, which is a collection of books that are dedicated to studying Black speculative fiction, but also history and also just aspects of Blackness through graphic representation. Let me see here. So I want to talk about Queenie. How many people are familiar with Stephanie St. Clair? Okay, about to get more familiar in a second, right? So we actually became aware of the fact that this book was done in France at first, and I was just immediately drawn to it. A little bit about Megascope. Megascope is a name that was coined by W.E.B. Du Bois, so I figure it's appropriate to talk about this here. How many people knew that Du Bois wrote science fiction? Okay, more folk, okay. So this particular story is called The Princess Steel. It was actually written in 1905, and a couple of scholars actually found it in his papers in 2015. And it's basically a story about his dealings or thoughts about like the U.S. steel industry, and he uses this device called a megascope to actually look at, just kind of frame the conversation. But it's a device that can see through time and space. So we thought it would be an appropriate name for an imprint dedicated to looking at, just found histories when it comes to Blackness. So Queenie, the Godmother of Harlem, was written by Aurélie Levy and illustrated by Elizabeth Colomba. Aurélie is a writer, scholar, and has worked in Hollywood and is a really talented writer. This book, again, was published in Paris to great acclaim. And we actually got the first 28 pages of it, and I was blown away by it. I was like, okay, first of all, I knew who Stephanie St. Clair was. And also, I didn't even know that this book existed. So it was actually translated and brought to America. And Elizabeth Colomba is actually from Martinique, just like Stephanie St. Clair was. She is an extremely talented artist and illustrator and historian. A lot of her work as a painter deals with actually going back and finding and recentering Black women throughout history. But she's also a storyboard illustrator and a graphic novelist. And also, just like Stephanie St. Clair, moved from Martinique to Harlem and actually lives in the space. She wasn't able to be with us today. She's traveling abroad. But I was here to speak about this wonderful book. Let's see here. People are familiar with this story, right? Okay. A lot of people know about Bumpy Johnson, right? Particularly because of the, the Godfather of Harlem TV show. But I think fewer people know that he was the mentee of Stephanie St. Clair, right? So Stephanie St. Clair was born in, I think, 1897, passed away in 1969. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my thing to click here. So this is why I always use the finger. All right, if you've seen this film, it came out in 1994. Up until fairly recently, it was the only representation we had seen of the Queen played by the great Cicely Tyson. This film in 1994, where it details a battle between her faction. She was an extremely powerful gangster at the time. And she, again, was the mentor of Bumpy Johnson, played in this particular film by Lawrence Fishburne. She actually went up against Dutch Schultz and also Lucky Luciano and actually still controlled her kingdom, so to speak, but also bequeathed that to Bumpy Johnson later. What's really interesting about her as well is that even though she was a major participant in the informal economy, shall we say, she also was a strong supporter of the community and also was an activist, feminist, and was not to be played with, actually. And so the story that we're talking about is about this woman who comes over from Martinique, encounters and endures a lot of racism, sexism, what have you, actually pulls herself up and actually becomes an extremely powerful force in the underworld, but then also is using that particular connection to the numbers racket and things of that nature to actually elevate black people at the time. This is during the 1930s. And these are actual photos of her. So after she leaves the game, she actually gives this kingdom to Bumpy Johnson and goes back to Martinique and actually retires a very wealthy woman. I think she passes away around 78. So this graphic novel, again, written by Aurélie Levy and published by Megascope and illustrated by Elizabeth Colomba, details her rise to power. And actually, it will be available in the bookstore. But I'm very excited about just extreme how well the book is actually put together. I think you find it really, really enticing as well. And I'm excited to add it to the line. And I'm going to stop talking. And please learn more about Stephanie St. Clair and Queenie. And I'm very happy to be here. And I'm going to step down. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you, John. Thank you. We're going to reserve questions until after everyone presented so we can get through all 4 projects, and then we'll open up the mic for questions. The next project is Kofi's Fire, an interactive graphic novel inspired by the true story of the revolt in Lower Manhattan in 1741, and it's produced by the historic Hudson Valley and Blue Telescope. So I would like to bring to the stage Will Ellis and Reese Patillo.
Mic check.
Awesome. There we go.
Can we be lazy and sit? Do we have to go to the podium? Okay,
you
cool.
can.
Before we start, I just want to let you guys know this is an exciting moment for me. When I was much younger, I had ADHD. I probably still have it. And I would be in classrooms, and I had to draw at the same time while the teacher was talking because I just had to stimulate myself and stimulate both sides of my brain. And I would draw comic book stuff constantly. And so it's really interesting to be here now producing comic book and graphic novel materials for classrooms. So it's just like a full circle moment. So it's kind of exciting. Oh, I guess I'll get the clicker though.
It kind of clicks in slow now.
Slow motion click.
Maybe click in the hole.
There we go. So I'm joined here by Reese and also Deirdre, who worked on this project. As Deirdre mentioned, Kofi's Fire is a historic graphic novel. It focuses on an event that happened in 1741 that later on became known as the Great Negro Plot, and it involved the enslaved community of New York, as well as some indentured white servants, and a set of fires that occurred throughout New York City as an attempt to revolt against British rule. The website is online and active, so you can go to kofisfire.com and check it out. Yeah. Anything to say? Reese?
No, I mean, you practically summed it up. Yeah.
Okay. Slow click. Before we go any further, I want to acknowledge just all the people who worked on this project. There was a lot of people over the last 3 or 4 years. Kind of like, as I look at this, it's like the Avengers. Just kind of everybody coming together. I mean, we had like artists and designers and writers and UX architects and creative leadership and project management, you name it. And so everybody just kind of really came together and teamed up and collaborated to really produce something that I think is incredible. But I also, there's a few logos on there. Again, this project is managed by Historic Hudson Valley, with funding from the Endowment from the Humanities, and produced by Blue Telescope, which is an interactive agency here in New York City. So again, this is like the Avengers coming together to put this thing, to get this thing to happen. Slow click. So, you want to jump in on this, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the really awesome things about this project was the amount of collaboration that we had throughout the project. You know, one of the great things that I loved about it was that we were able to kind of do a deeper dive and do our research. You know, we all got together and did some research on the actual, and did some research to kind of look at how some of the plantation area looked and kind of some of the things that they had went through back in that time, to make sure that a lot of the illustrations that were created by Felicia Gordon, who's also here in this auditorium as well. Big shout out to her on these amazing illustrations. Sorry to put you on the spot, but definitely wanted to give you your flowers on this one. But it was so great to be able to really have the time to go in and understand how our ancestors had lived and what it looked like. And I think that kind of gave us another push as well to bring this story to life, to make sure that we tell it correctly. And to be able to really speak to the students and teachers and scholars and do our research in that aspect, come back and really figure out what they wanted and what they wanted to see, was an amazing journey as well, too.
I mean, everything down to the language. We wanted to make sure that if we're building this for students, that the way we spoke to them, the way we told the story made sense for them. So we did a lot of testing over the last few years. If you look at one of the images, we actually did some testing here with the Schomburg and their Junior Scholars Program to make sure that the stuff we were working on was in alignment and made sense. So shout out to the Schomburg and the Junior Scholars Program for all your help.
Yeah.
The website is, it's a unique experience. I know myself, I haven't seen a lot of this type of material on the web where it's educational, but I don't want to say entertainment, but it's something that's engaging for students. It focuses on our history as people of color, but it also focuses on the history of like American and specifically New York history. So a lot of great content there, but also a lot of great tools. As you go through the site, you click on certain things, there's little informational windows that will slide open to give you more information. There's a lot of tools for teachers. We have interactive maps. It's just a lot of, it's good storytelling, but it's a lot of interactive tools to really help convey and teach. So really excited about that.
Do you want me to jump in? Yeah. So I had the great honor and pleasure of being the writer for this project. It's my first foray into writing graphic literature, and of course, being a history buff and an educator, it was an extreme pleasure to work with the team, because I think what we haven't said yet is that the historical record that the treatment was built on and then our story was built upon was really just, the primary record was the transcript from the trial where the young men, Kofi, were put on trial for conspiracy to burn down New York and kill the citizens of New York. It was the Great Negro Rebellion of 1741. And so that court record being really the manuscript of one of the Chief Justices, leaving out a bunch of historical information, we had to kind of build life into that document. And that meant rebuilding the scenes, the sights and scenes of colonial New York, being accurate about not everything from the kind of roles people would have, the streets, their clothing, the window pane glass. And we were really gifted to work with Felicia Gordon, who's an incredible illustrator, and you're gonna see more of her work as we page through this, but that was the work that we had to do. We had to reimagine and re-image colonial New York for young people.
And you know, while we're here, I want to shout out Kamau. I used to actually work with Kamau on some other projects, and you know, he'd always say, like, you know, we would do a test and we would ask people, like, you know, picture 18th century New York. And most people couldn't do it because there's not a lot of imagery that's around to really help convey that image. And the furthest back people would probably go is like Gangs of New York or something like that, and that's about as far. So there's something really special about creating imagery to help frame, like, not just, you know, enslaved people during this time, but just the full scale of this burgeoning metropolis, right? Like, it was just recently like New Amsterdam, and it's now becoming its own place. It's like this port city, there's like ships, there's no skyscrapers, and you know, at that time. So it's just like interesting to really have some visuals to convey what New York looked like during that time.
Mm-hmm. And then one of the biggest points for me as a writer was to humanize the Africans who were enslaved here in the colony, right? And just using that language, Africans who were enslaved in the colony, is different than saying the slaves in New York, right? And so there's a whole paradigm shift around how we speak about and write about the lives of these people, but how do we create their worlds? And so this is one of my favorite images from the whole piece, because we took a moment at the beginning of the story, which is quite tragic story, to give the community a moment of peace, a moment of rest, a moment of joy before their work of the day began. And so we could establish their bonds and their loving relationships and their full humanity. It was really important to us, and it's just beautiful for the and the work proceeds from there.
Great work, Felicia. We're gonna keep giving you flowers on every slide.
Seriously.
So. Speaking of Felicia, so to that point, you know, a lot of times when you see media about the enslaved, you know, you see people who are downtrodden, who are defeated, who just look terrible, and we didn't want to do that with the story. We wanted to create a platform and an aesthetic that represents our ancestors in a really beautiful and dignified way. So we took a lot of time in the sketching and in the character design to bring these people to life in a certain kind of way. Because, you know, I'm not an educator, but I've done some of this work in classrooms before, and when you have children of color, the minute you start talking about slavery, you see them slump down in their chairs, they start to get embarrassed because no one wants their heritage and their culture to just be like oppression. And so we wanted to create something with beautiful people so that when they look up at the classroom and they go through this project, they feel like, oh yeah, that's me. This looks like me. You know, like I can relate to this person. I feel honored and kind of excited to see myself in these people. So a lot of work in the beginning before we touched any of the boards, just sketching out and making sure these people were really appropriately represented, a vibe and an aesthetic that made sense. You want to talk about the creative process?
Sure, absolutely. So throughout this project, we did a lot of thought around how we wanted to particularly portray Kofi and just the overall visuals as well. We took a lot of time to really understand kind of what the students were into in terms of comic books and kind of some of those trends that we were seeing throughout a lot of Marvel and Into the Spider-Verse. You know, a lot of those comics, and we even kind of did some movie research as well to really understand what visuals can we use, what techniques are being used in storytelling now to really connect these dots that we wanted to make. So one of the things that we really enjoyed to do that with too is we started out with our storyboards. We went into animatics, which is taking those storyboards and really understanding how to make them move. So one of my roles on this project as well was the creative designer and motion designer on this project too. So from my aspect, I wanted to understand how we could potentially add motion to the story that can complement a lot of the historical elements that we wanted to incorporate, but also keep students engaged, right? Because everything looks really great when you add just a little bit of emotion on top of it to really portray and bring the emphasis to it. So throughout the story, you'll see a lot of different elements of Kofi, falling through his ancestral mystic visions. And Deirdre and Will did an amazing job of understanding and creating and crafting these mystical scenes and ideas of how we can bring his ancestry into the story as well, which is something that we don't really see in a lot of stories in textbooks in general of back in the day. It's something that I wish that I had growing up as a kid, was these images of where he's from, why his name is the way his name is written and spoken to, bringing in his culture throughout the dialogue, throughout the visuals. And yeah, it's just an amazing.
Just on it, shout out to Betsy from Historical Hudson Valley. When we presented some of the earlier scripts, and we were like, we want to put some magic in there. She was like, oh, okay, let's see how it does. 2 more slides, guys.
No, we're also just building on what Reese said. You can advance the slide. The magical realism was a portal for us to be able to do some storytelling, but also the historical record has this character, Kofi. His name is Cuff, and you might see it in the historical record as Kofi, C-U-F-F-E. And we bring our own knowledge of, oh, well, he's a Khan, he's from West Africa. His name is probably Kofi, right? And let's spell it the way the Akan people spell it, and let's assert, that sense of identity around him and the whole community. And so just to build in that one little nuance is the kind of things that we were very intentional about doing.
And of course, after all of that work, all that research, all that testing, final product, again, Felicia, more flowers, did an incredible job of just illustrating these environments and these animatics to just create something that kids can relate to, and actually I think probably better than stuff they would see in Marvel. Just really, really incredible art. I mean, the website experience is incredible, but just the art on itself stands alone and just really knocks things out of the box. You see some of the mysticism and action here, and some of this illustration as Kofi is going through an ancestral vision and having some remembrance. Such a dramatic transition. And here you see some of the other panels and some of the art. So you'll see a lot of different things. There's a lot of action in here. It is in some way a courtroom drama, so there's a lot of scenes that reflect this kind of the tension and action that happens within the courtroom. Again, we wanted to realize these people and humanize them to show different types of relationships. So there is love and connection and family. There is community in there. There is mentorship. It's a really full 4 chapters of this human good story, and I think it's educational and academic, but it's also just a good story. And that's something we really wanted to create. Like, this is a good story. People should be excited to read this and see it. And that's our final slide. Anything else, guys?
No, the whole question of the story is that hundreds of people were arrested for setting these fires in New York and put on trials. Many were put to death. Many were deported, and the question is, did Kofi do it or not, right? And so it's a historical drama, and I would love for you guys to check it out and then come to see us and let us know if you think he did it or not. But thank you for that moment.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you to the whole team. Yep. And so next up is Kamau Ware, who's going to talk about Buffalo Sonnet, a digital comic book inspired by San Juan Hill, right here in New York, in partnership with the Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts. Thank you, Kamau.
Check. Is this on? All right, cool. Let's make it a decision. Are we sitting or are we standing?
Whatever you like.
I think that sitting is what we're doing. Yeah, well, once again, I want to, as others have stated, I want to thank the Schomburg for existing, for being here, for allowing me to come back on this stage and also be a part of the Black Comic Festival. Thanks to the founders and, of course, the producer. And I just want to give a shout out to just that entire generation Toro was a part of, 19 teens, 20s, and 30s, that really brought forward this idea of being new and different and pushing boundaries to allow us to be in spaces like this and have these kind of conversations. This is a digital comic book and it's vertical. Anybody here familiar with webtoons? I see a lot of okay, nerd life, word. So if you want to scan this QR code, you can actually get access to the page that has the comic book on it, or it might be the actual comic book. And it is a digital vertical comic, and so you basically, it's like an infinite scroll. And the infinite scroll in many respects feels like you are moving or pushing through time. And one of the main things I want to say about this project is that it is a prayer. And I know we have a slow click going on. I think I'm pointing in the right direction. And so, as Will mentioned, and thank you for the shout out, brother, and I'm also giving you your flowers today too, so it's Flower Day. You know what I mean? I was inspired to start doing a lot of research to create the Black Gotham experience in 2010 by a middle school child while I was doing tours in the Lower East Side about German, Jewish, and Italian families. And it felt almost like an angel stepped in that room and just like pushed me to say, create new futures where children don't have to always ask these questions, where the Black people are. And as I've been doing my research since 2008, I have come across a lot of stories that do have these incredible heroes, that have these moments of tragedy. And as I look at these powerful stories, one of the things I think about is, where's the healing in our praxis? It's one thing to like nerd out and get the information and have conversation, but part of what I was feeling as a human being who also deals with my own trauma and my own problems is like, where's the medicine? And so part of what Buffalo Sonnet is it's a play on Buffalo Soldier, which goes back to San Juan Hill, the neighborhood, but also Black veterans who fought after the Civil War to expand territories for the US, which meant taking American indigenous lands and walking into that complexity of violence that Black people carry with them. And so at the end of the day, it is a digital comic book, but it is very much meant and intended to be medicine, to be 14 lines that can be memorized, that give you an idea of how we come to terms with this aspect of our diaspora that we really can't shake, which is violence. And so it starts in the 1920s. It is a portrait of a neighborhood, and it really centers around a couple characters. And the main figure is a guy named Paint. But once again, I want to like pause and think about, you know, how we all came together, you know, not to build a bomb, but to build a process. And we've been working on this for some time. I know we have some folks, I think, in the room. Suede, you outside? Brother Suede is out here. I don't know if East is here or yet. Not, but there's a lot of people who have been involved in working through this project over time, and we've been iterating for a while, and Will's been a part of our team in the past, and we've had a lot of incredible crews. I don't know if Adrian's in the building or not. What up, big dog? Adrian Franks has also been just super consistent throughout the years, and so we're looking at how do you take people and make them the illustration. And one of our creative consultants, our main creative consultant, Chris Walker, was like, you're making a comic book, but you're really making a movie. He goes, the lights, camera, action, production, feed the talent, all that, you're really bringing people in front of the camera and you're making a comic, but your production schedule looks a lot like you're making a film, which is very expensive. And so it's taken us some time to get to this level, but having a commission by Lincoln Center was a great way for us to have some resources to move it forward. Just like room check, y'all with me? I know I'm sharing, you know, just a few different processes here. And so this just kind of describes what this is, and I presented this as Kamau Studios, and I, you know, mentioned, you know, my background with Black Gotham experience, 14 years in New York City, working on telling these stories, but I did it as Kamau Studios because this exists outside of the established canon of the Black Gotham experience, which goes from the 1400s until 1883. And so in order to like stay true to what Black Gotham experience is doing with those core stories, I was like, let's be playful. Let's just kind of do like a Rogue One move and just kind of go, you know, outside of the canon and just like see what comes out of it. And I thought that that allowed me as an artist to have space to say, all right, let's write something that feels poetic, but at the same time is historic, and also really begin to look at some of the things that we've seen over time, which is women are often, black women in particular, are often really in the shadows of the archive. And so Buffalo Sonnet really looks at some of the stories between women and how they are very much a part of luminaries that often get most of the credit, who often tend to be men. And so if you scroll through the story, not now necessarily while we're talking, but there is a historic figure whose backstory is explained in this. And so it's historic fiction, but there's actual real history braided into it. And it's a lot about how these two women have been in conversation to create a safe space for a community in what is now the area known as Lincoln Center. I heard somebody say, that's good. Somebody, so research also, big history nerd, part of what Black Gotham Experience has been doing for years is just like, how do you braid aesthetics and scholarship? Is anybody here familiar with San Juan Hill as a community, just by a show of hands? I see some hands up. Anybody familiar with the 1863 race riots, often called the draft riots? I see a lot of hands, cool. There also was like race riots like 1901, like close to like the Tenderloin area now. Part of what you see in New York City is going back to 1741, Black people have been fighting and pushing for space. And one of the oldest ethnic communities in this territory are people of African descent, going back to the 1600s. And Black folks got to Harlem in part because it was a safe space. We kept getting pushed out of neighborhoods in lower Manhattan. And so San Juan Hill was one of those neighborhoods that urban redevelopment pushed Black people out. And in many ways, it's like that shadow that people don't know about, but it's there. And from Amsterdam news to music to plays, a lot of those things were happening in San Juan Hill before they came to Harlem. And so I want to be able to share that history, but also do it through characters. And so
Roughly the area, the streets, could you tell them where?
So Amsterdam is a great way to think about it, because Amsterdam News used to be on Amsterdam Avenue in San Juan Hill before coming to Harlem. And so just think about like 59th Street. And so around like 59th Street, go up to like about 65th or so, is kind of like where San Juan Hill is. And so if you think about where Lincoln Center is, that's more or less the exact same space. And so this story is more or less like a day in the neighborhood. And we use photography as a main illustrative medium, and we also casted characters. We also went into the archive and found ways to make past photographic images be in conversation with new photographic images. And I don't know if we have any stars in here tonight. Is anybody who's in the comic in here today? I know I heard Adrian, so maybe Crown's in the building. I heard, okay, I'm seeing somebody point. And so, so what you have is like these two characters who, one's like a kid trying to get to do an errand, and he's being not harassed, but like there's a big homie in the neighborhood who wants him to be more tough. Anybody ever grow up with somebody like that? I see some hands going up. It's like, yeah, like I like you, you cool, but like you're not tough enough, right? And so that's happening throughout the story. And so the poem is on the right-hand side, some of his dialogues on the left-hand side, and what you have here is this energy of toughness or violence that Black people have had to deal with as they're migrating by force. And we just want to have a way to like look at it from an allegory, but also have this poem as a way to kind of like soften it and have a conversation about it. And so I'm going to get to one of my last slides, because I want to show you all something that we're going to have at our table. This is a review. I'm not going to read it because it's there for you to take a look at. But we appreciate people who see the work and get that we're using archives to be in conversation with each other, and now talking to people who are of African descent to play these roles allows them to step in and also be a part of the healing process. And that's why I think that the prayer, Buffalo Sonnet, is really useful. And last but not least, just want to really acknowledge like my foundation in this work. This was a Kamau Studios project, but Black Gotham Experience really has learned a lot through various commissions and through working with different people in the community. We have a commission also with the Apollo to do a walk here in Harlem called Kuzaliwa. And so we really have had a chance to work with lots of people to like expand this timeline in New York. And this is the poem here. I mean, we'll have some at our table. But I just want everybody just to like think about how much we carry, you know, and then like not to get super spiritual and woo-woo, but that's part of what we learned is like what's next. As we learn more about our history and we think about what we carry, just finding ways to like metabolize that, because part of why we're resilient is because we're alchemists. We figured things out. And I think that part what the creative process does is it opens the door for us to use our imagination to see what's not there. And often what's not there is because it was either taken or it's been made obscure. And that's where I think our next leap is. And so that's my prayer for the room, and that's my prayer for everybody. And I want to congratulate everybody's projects at this panel. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kamau. And the fourth project is the graphic history of hip hop. And so we have Tim Fielder and Walter Greason.
Hello.
Hey. What's up, y'all?
How's it going?
Oh, come on,
How's
get
it
up,
going?
get the energy.
How's it
come
going?
on.
How's it going?
Y'all know how we do in Harlem. Y'all got to stand up. This is so good. Thank y'all for letting us be here today. My name's Walter. This is Tim.
I'm Tim Fielder. This is Walter Greason.
It's good to see y'all today. I can't tell you how much this means for me just because it's been a very, very traumatic season. My aunt, Marcella Maxwell, passed away a month ago. She was the first black woman human rights commissioner here in New York City, transformed the lives of thousands of people over her life, particularly through Medgar Evers College. So that was one loss. Then I took another body blow. It was December. My man, Angel David Nieves, who most of y'all wouldn't know, but he is a modern-day Arturo Schomburg. He passed away, and so we're still reeling, trying to recover and bring his work back to life. We're taking all these projects like this for 20 years and bringing them into classrooms, letting them be standards of scholarship that liberates more people to come forward. But I do have victories. So T. Thomas Fortune is being featured on the Gilded Age. We couldn't do it without the collections here at the Schomburg Center. We have this work that has come out the last time I was in town, actually frames perfectly what we're doing. I was at the Shabazz Center, the Audubon Ballroom, and I pitched, how do we actually come together and build an economy that serves not just Harlem, but makes Harlem a center for economic growth for the world? And that's what you're seeing on display here. From Megascope, through the study of New York City, going through this piece with the Sonnet, these are all industries. The way y'all thought about steel or cars or oil, billions and billions of dollars tied up in all these ideas that were just at the beginning of letting it loose. And that's why Tim and I founded the Graphic History Company to launch the graphic history of hip hop. New York City Department of Education came to us in 2022, 50th anniversary of hip hop, said, can you do something that will actually capture the spirit, the energy, the flow of what hip hop did to the world? And I was like, there's only one artist I have in mind for this. I gotta get Tim Fielder. Tim Fielder, the OG Afrofuturist, you tell him.
I'm going to interject a little bit here because, you know, Walter's the straight man here. I'm the comedic relief, right? So my job is to take Walter's world, which is all about hip hop. He's been teaching hip hop since 94 or something like that. 94,
yeah.
That's about 30 years, right? So my job was to take his script and to make it look beautiful. He approached me in December of 2020. It took me about 2022, that's right, sorry. And he asked me, hey man, I want you to do this book. Joe Schmidt of the Department of Education asked us to produce a 24-page comic, which we did. And of course, you know me, I'm the fully rendered guy. Everything has to be painted and rendered, which I know people make fun of, but hey, you all deserve epic storylines, right? Woo! Thank you, right? So Walter gave me the script. We got together, and over the course of about 6 or 7 months, we produced our book, which was released in a 31-page format, 100,000 copies into the Department of Education.
Your kid's been reading this for 4 months already.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And as you can see here, Walter covered all of the different geographical elements of hip hop, right? Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm a black rock guy, right? I'm Fishbone. That's what I do. But to immerse myself in this world that I have been dealing with indirectly as an editorial illustrator over the decades, this was a full circle moment for me. Walter, tell them a little bit about what this is about.
So this is all about layers. So methodologically, how do
Like
you
an
actually
onion.
break this
Onion.
down? So historically, we had to tell the 50-year history. How did the world change? But I'm going to come back to that at the end. The first step we took was deciding on lyrics. And so you see this opening page. Could you click back one? Uh-oh. There we go. There we go. So the East page. We get Gil Scott-Heron, we get The Last Poets, and we get a framing device. I think you got to click and hold. There you go. Music has the power to make me feel good like nothing else does. It gives me some peace for a while. Takes me back to who I really am. Who feels that way about music? You know in your life you had that bad moment, you gotta put your favorite song on, helps you get back to center. That's how we begin. But look at the layers. We got Gil in the back, right? Then we got The Last Poets up front, because that's the transition. The spoken word lays the foundation for the lyricism. But then at the core is this Twin Towers piece. Because we all know what 9/11 did to our country and the world. We had to resituate y'all back.
Also have to say, people, Abiodun is still with us from The Last Poets. So as you can see here very quickly, when I did the illustrations with the portraiture, I've been drowning in rappers for about a year now, right? About 200 of them I've done. We're working on volume 2 and 3 at this time, which we got to turn in at the end of June. But most importantly, and we're going to click to the next one here. After we released the book, Walter and I went insane. We founded our company, the Graphic History Company, which seems weird, but yeah, the name was available. And we went on to expand that small comic into a 91-page graphic novel, which premieres physically here at the Schomburg.
Today, the first time ever y'all get to get these in-house.
Hardcover and softcover.
So look at this. You got James Brown doing the big payback, right? Or any of these layers. So you're going to see James Brown doing big payback, but then what do I sneak in here at the bottom? After the assassinations of Dr. King and Senator Kennedy, the White Citizens Council transformed the Republican Party and the federal politics of racial segregation with dire consequences for Black Americans. One sentence reframes all the things we struggle with to this day. You want to complain about whether it's George W. Bush or Donald Trump or Joe Biden or Barack Obama, all of those politics come down to the way that these people reoriented our system after 1968. And the way that that structure changed set up the entire foundation for why hip-hop did what it did. And so you can go page by page, panel by panel. The illustrations, the language, the stories, they're all here to help you remember what you heard, re-experience what you lived, but then have new context for it, to see yourself, to see your community in a different light. Because ultimately, that's the gift of Tim's art, is that he brings the audience, the viewer, the reader to the center. It's the piece where it's not about what I'm saying or what he's saying, it's about your lives. It's about what your dreams are and the limitations people try to impose on them. And so it's the energy. Unlike, I've taught 8,000 students, I've been teaching more than 30 years. I've never produced an educational resource that has this resonance where students chasing us through the hallway, teachers.
It was very frightening. Very frightening.
People love this because they see themselves, they feel themselves. And that's what we're trying to bring to the table, not just for our work and anything coming out of graphic history, but we set it as a standard for this entire genre, for all of the industries that come out of this.
Also, want to reiterate to the audience and to the readers, hip hop is more than just a Black and male thing. It's women, brown people, all over.
Third base, Beastie Boys. There's white people.
It's white folks in it, right?
Eminem.
One could say that hip hop originated in the Caribbean with Cool Herc.
Busta Rhymes on that
That's
every
right.
day.
So that's what we did. We did the best we could to integrate as much as we could into the story. However, couldn't cover everything. The story of hip hop is so large, that's why we have to do 2 additional volumes. And at this point, we covered it all the way up to 2006.
Yeah, 2006, Nas, Hip Hop is Dead is where we put the kind of initial closing part, because it was a history. We didn't like, historians don't like talking about the present. I don't know if y'all want to get in on the secrets. Historians are like, we don't know yet. We got to hold off. Let's see some records. Let the people, later on we'll decide. So we stop at 06. But this whole layered experience we don't do enough recent history. How many people took a history course that stopped at like Vietnam or World War II, right? And folks didn't get up to the present. This gives a bridge for our people to come in and actually know and start to understand what's happening around us. And so that piece of always leaving out the present is what makes us feel disenfranchised. We can't feel and build that connection. So that's the piece where we're trying to get everybody on board to see the lives and communities that we share and how we can do better than a lot of the things that we saw unfold.
All right, this is just wanted to show these last two things because I know we have about 2 minutes remaining. I was in the hospital. Walter and I have given blood to produce this book. So don't think, oh, they just threw it together. No, we did not. In fact, one of the reasons that Katie too, where are you? I was getting my blood pressure pills, right? I had to make sure I got them before I got here. So it's very, very, very important that you guys understand that we put our blood, sweat, and tears into this project. I'm very proud of what we've done. And I think we got one more slide to show, or I have an announcement to make. I don't know, is Gina La Quinta here? Is she here? I don't know if she's here. It doesn't matter. It's all good. So I am making a public announcement that the adaptation of W.E.B. Du Bois's The Comet, which I've been working on over the last few months, it has been acquired by W.W. Norton, Liverite, the imprint. It'll be out in late 2025. That's more work I gotta do. And with that, I want to express this last thing. Walter Greason has changed my life. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
It's all teamwork, it's all collaboration. That's
it's
how
all
we
collaboration.
Do it
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tim and Walter. And so I want to give the floor for 1 or 2 questions. We are nearing the end of our time, and I would like to prioritize young people who are in the audience, because what you've witnessed, there are a lot of folks, and we're just part of our larger teams, who are working really hard to bring, histories to life so that you as young people can consume stories and fill in the gaps and learn the untold history of our people and our culture. And so if you have any questions, we'll take 1 or 2 really quickly for any of us. Yeah. Any questions? You can just, yes, hello, thank you. Stand up, please.
My question is, how are you all going to bring this to white people? Because as Black people, we often already look out for ourselves to find these things. Because when you all dropped the GOT, dropped the comics from the GOT, I went to my library and I saw it. I'm getting 3 copies for my family. But I feel like oftentimes richer white communities don't see these things. So how do you plan on expanding it to get it to that, I guess, white majority but minority in this context?
I'm going to start with that one.
Yeah.
Actually. This guy's connections. I have been to Tennessee, Virginia. I did not realize there was a society of social studies workers. I didn't know that till this guy. Their entire community, like comic book conventions, they have conventions for social studies folks.
Yes.
We have been all over this country, basically humping what we do, and it's for everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to say, with the technology and the distribution systems that exist now, you can get our stuff on Walmart. That's right. You can get it anywhere.
So I want to make an important distinction about the work that we did on Kofi's Fire. Even though it's focused on the lives of the enslaved, it's American history and it's New York history, and the way it's being presented is not like a Black story. This is an American story, and so there's a lot of work that HHV is doing to work with the teachers and the academic institutions to get it into the classroom so that we can teach this as history, not just oh, here, put the Black kids in one room or in the library and show this film. No, this is for everybody. So, but of course down south in Florida and those places might be a little difficult, but yeah.
Hello? Yeah. Oh, okay. I was going to say that, Abrams Books is a massive company. I don't know if you're familiar with this book called Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So it's a really large conglomerate, and the parent company is in France. And so before we picked up Queenie. It was already a massive hit in Paris. The French comics industry, by the way, is massive. Like ours is really in its infancy. It's a full-grown beast of a piece. So everybody reads comics and stuff. So it's already reaching the audiences. And Queenie and all the Megascope books, including Devour, which is going to debut here at the Schomburg, will be available globally. So, yeah.
I have two comments. First, slightly unpopular take is I've told people I don't create for white people, and I think that's why white people like what I create. And Lincoln Center has a lot of white folks, in case you want to, their campus has opera, theater, and I think that part of why places like a Lincoln Center, we've done work with like government agencies, is there's a way that we create that is very intentionally meant for like black healing that I see white people really appreciating, and white people that might have a lot of money or often do get behind the work that we create. And so I think that I just wanted to like mention those 2 points because they do come together. It doesn't mean like, hey, we don't want white people to read our stuff. It's just kind of like when I sometimes check out other people's work, like I don't like Japanese people making stuff for me, but I love Japanese stuff. So it's like, yo, that's dope. Don't make it for me, make it for you, so it'll be like a little more authentic. And then I'm just pull up, I'm gonna buy it, right? So both things can be true.
Beautiful. Thank you. So I want to encourage you all to, before I say that, I have the great fortune to be partnering with the New York City Department of Education Civics for All Comics group. And so at the Black Comics Collective table in the lobby, I'll be giving out free comics for young people from their entire collection. But be sure to visit the tables of all of our presenters today to learn more about their projects. We have the QR codes out there if you missed them. And thank you so much, because as you can see, a lot of hard work and passion goes into making sure that these stories become visualized and consumable, and I'm so proud to have contributed not only to our project, but to this panel.
And shout out to you and Katie too for curating and architecting this. Even though I was on the panel, I was like, it's about comic books in classrooms. How exciting can it be? Totally. And these guys are really exciting, and like really great presenters. I mean, especially you guys getting up. I was like, man, it's just like a comedy show or something, like, so I appreciate that.
That's the point. Thank you.
You know how Kevin Hart said he's a comedic rock star. These are comic book rock stars. So thank you so much for your time and attention. The exit is open to the right, and the tables are officially open now. It's 12 noon. Go and enjoy your day. Thanks again for coming to this panel.